Okay, so now I'm in the morning light. You can see it coming face from behind me there. And this is the maquette that we've approved, the clients and I. And we are going to go ahead and I'm going to start transferring this to marble. So you can see the top of the design there with the lovely triangle. I like that a lot. And so here we go. Let's zoom in on that. There we go with that too. Okay, gonna move forward. Let's go into marble. Hello, this is Borsheim, and I just got done picking cherries. Woohoo! I know you wanted to know that. So I have my maquette in French, or bozzetto in Italian, which means my clay model. And in this case, the model is going to be 100% size of the marble carving that I'm making. So I wanted to figure out all of the composition ideas because I didn't want to make a mistake on this because it's not my usual project. This is a commission, and that means that the piece is sold already when I make it. So if I make something on my own and I break it or I carve the nose off, then I redesign and nobody ever knows the wiser. But when I do a commission, I want to make sure that I've got everything thought out ahead and that I can be more efficient with this. So it's going to be interesting because I don't usually do that kind of thing. So anyway, now I have on the board here a pencil that drew straight down for the form of this to get the thickness of the brick here. What I originally did was I took boxes because a box usually has a 90-degree angle like this, right? And I set boxes so I would know exactly the vertical measurement, and then I drew my lines accordingly to where those were. This is a wax-based clay, never dries out. It's my favorite, tan AB225, I think. Anyhow, I think you get it from J.R. Reynolds if they're still in business. I got mine years and years ago and shipped it from Texas. So, now, the Italians, I don't need fixative, the Italians have a mode where you make the sculpture in whatever material you like. And then you translate it by a point-up system. Usually the bozzetto is smaller and you mathematically enlarge it. Let's say I want to do it 2.2 size is larger than what I have. Then if I take a measurement here and it's a 10 for easy math, and I want to enlarge it to 2.2 sizes, in other words just over double, then I would say 10 times 2.2 and I would get my new measurement. Then I would come over here to the edge of the marble and I would say, okay, if this is 10 from this point of the toe to this point here, I would say, oh, okay, 10 is 2.2 is, there you go, 22, okay. And then you would mathematically do it up. So now, this is your X, your horizontal, remember your mathematics, and your Y is going to be your vertical axis, and then Z is going to be your depth. Can you see this here? Okay, so basically I'm going to be trying to manually do a point-up system, and I'm not going to be very precise on it because I don't enjoy it, and I've never learned how to use a point-up machine, and I don't know if I would have the patience to do it because it's kind of weird. I don't enjoy copying, which is strange because it's my own design, but I have to work with the brain that I have, and so I will do very rough measurements. And I have to say the thing for me is I don't have the ability to measure the same thing twice and get the same outcome. So I tend to repeat a lot. But I will take this, for example. I don't actually like looking at the numbers, and I don't need to for this because it's 100%. So I don't need to concern myself with the mathematics of it. But I'm going to put this over here. I see that the rock, this part is over the feet. Okay, so if I want to start measuring the feet here, I'll come over and say there's to the knee. But I need to note the distance from where it hits that line. So I'm going to kind of eyeball it and go, okay, that distance is right about here. Did I bring a pencil? Oh, yeah. Alright, this is a cool little tool I got from my former husband, John. It's a measuring to measure thickness, so you can see how deep something is. You know, I put it up there, and I can measure the deepness of it. Pretty nice. Okay, that's good enough for a pencil. So basically what I will do is come over here. You see I started to do a mark here, and then, okay, the knee part is very, very close to the edge here, so I'm not going to worry about it. What I am going to worry about taking a web class in about 10 minutes. Okay, so anyway, what I am going to worry about is I'm going to fudge everything a little bit wider, larger, because I know we have what Scott Owens calls a stone expansion, which means when you cut the rock off, the next morning when you show up again, all of a sudden it seems like your marble grew bigger. It's a weird phenomenon, but it kind of works. It's probably because your brain really is getting closer to seeing the finished product. But this is not, it's so small a distance between here and there, and I don't want to screw up. So in my first cut of the stuff is going to be leaving a little extra space to be cautious. But I do want to have an idea. So, all right, I've done the length here. Now I want to start getting in some heights, okay? You've probably seen my gymnast picture where what I do is I draw on 3 sides of the rock, and then the 4th side is kind of your out. When I have a small sculpture like this, I'll just work the whole thing around and work into it. It depends, because you can do whatever makes you comfortable, obviously. You know, you have to figure out what to do in the case of making a mistake, and you've got to push back, because you're not going to ever be able to add the stone on. That's why I love it so much. It's subtractive. Did you know that sculpture, actually, the original meaning for it means to remove material? So it's really only wood carving and stone carving that are true sculpture in the sense of the word. Of course, today everybody means anything three-dimensional is sculpture, but it's not the original Latin meaning of the word. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to say, okay, how tall are the back of my heels? I'm going to go right about there. Now, here's something I want you to notice. This is on a board. It's actually a palette for painting, and I use the board here to put my clay on. So this is a little bit thicker. This marble is sitting on the table. So technically, when I measured this height, and I'm not including this, it could be that my sculpture is going to end up too low, okay? So I want to consider the measurement of this, and every mark I want to put a little bit higher. Again, higher in the sense that it's protecting me. If I'm gonna cut this low, I want the marble to be high. If I start actually here and I move it over exactly here, it's gonna turn out that this has a smaller base. It's not a lot of difference, but the thing about doing a small sculpture is it's really harder to do small and not screw up, because everything is shrunk and your proportions have to be very, very precise. If not, a little tiny difference between the space between the nose and the lip, and you've changed the whole structure of the face, it seems. So it's really important to remember all these things. So I'm going to add this little bit of thickness here because it is going to matter, okay? So the other thing is I could come out here and take all my measurements here, but I think that's harder to do if you're not right up against the piece. I could build the fudge factor in right now when I'm measuring this. Maybe that's what I'll do to double check myself. Okay. So again, and keep it right there. Now I need to come in this way from the line and figure out how far in did I go. Now one thing that's going to help me is to put this parallel to the front of this. Okay, you can't actually see that line, but it's right here. So what I want to do is I want to make this parallel, because if not, I'm always fighting and I'm turning, this is turned from there. Very easy to make a mistake. And the nice thing about doing the transfer of this drawing is I'm going to draw on the complete face of this, on the side, maybe even the back. And then I'm going to keep examining all that stuff. And then once I get the whole thing drawn, I'm going to stand back and look at it, examine my drawing, and decide what do the proportions look like. I'll probably actually use the camera too, because I find the camera, as long as it's not wide angle, the camera has given me a fresh eye to see the mistakes in my drawing. So I'll have a picture of this, I'll have a picture of this, and I'll put the two together and go, okay, that's not looking quite right, is it? Okay, so I already know the marble's going to turn out differently from the maquette, but I want it to be very close as much as possible, because this is what the two sisters have seen. Okay? Goodbye for now. I'm going to start my web class, and I'll do some measuring here, and then I'll show you kind of how it looks. Thank you for watching. Borsheimarts.com, and this is Kelly. Ciao, ciao. I have this project in my kitchen because that's the one that has the door to enter the house, and I didn't want to carry the marble inside. So I decided to set this up like I would sight size on a still life, meaning that I'm sitting here And when I look at this piece, I want it to be straight on. And when I turn to this piece, I want it to be straight on. So it's going to probably mess up with your view, but maybe I'll put you over here. I'll see if that works. So this way I can hopefully get a little bit more accurate on my measuring, okay? All right. So now what I want to do is, okay, I've got this mark here. You can start anywhere on this sort of thing. This is a problem with having a ruler that's long. I want to put a little more conservative on this, I think, rather. Okay, and then I'm going to go to the top of the back foot, not measure this. That comes later, I think. So, and I can stay down here underneath the. Okay. So you can see, really, I'm not very precise at all. And it's okay, because it's kind of like, for me anyway, it's a bit like drawing. Because first you have to get something on the paper, and then you can judge whether it's effective or not. Okay, so I had that mark already, but I'm going to move it up again because of the palette here. Okay, and now I can tell that the knee is going to go in here a wee bit. Mark that on the side. I can see because the line comes out like this and comes out. So the part that touches the most is going to be this part of the leg. That's the edge of this. Even that I put inside because I wanted some view from the bird's eye view down. I wanted some of the rock and roll of this leg to stay out. Okay, so when I put this behind here, I see there's an 8. And the thing is, I want to make sure that when I do vertical measurement, my stick is vertical. Because if you have it leaning this way or this way, it changes your measurement. I'm not all that precise, but I do try to err on the side of being precise and know that I just don't often have the patience for it. Okay, so again, I'm going to put that a little bit higher than I had it before. Alright, so now I'm going to come in and measure. Do you see I'm putting this parallel to this front line to me, and then I'm going to put my hand down here to the top of the hair right here. And I'm going to add just a wee bit more where my finger is. Come back over here, and I'm just guesstimating right now where it is, but let's go put that line right about here. Okay, so that's the sister on the left's height. And then I'll come back down here and do the sister on the right. Yeah, other left, other right, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to come do this. I'm trying to hunch down now, not because I love my bad posture, but because I want to get a horizontal look at this. Because really, idealistically, if I were doing a painting, I would make sure that my back was straight and that the easel was lifted up. But here it's just not practical. And I'm not going to be working here very much longer because once I get a drawing on this, I'm going to take this outside and start carving. Okay? Alright, so I have the height of the top wing, the height of this, and you will see that this wing here is lower than her head. So that looks good, these little stair steps, okay? Now what I want to do is come from this dimension right here, the edge of the marble here, and start going, okay, how far in do I go for all of these things? And I was looking for, maybe I use my painting, but I don't want to put that in. I don't want it getting oil on it either, so I'm going to put this here because I need a vertical. It's just really helpful to have a vertical. So if I can get this to be vertical, I can come in and measure how far in is this wing, because I can see that the knee is the part that touches. Okay, so how far in is the wing? The wing, because this is where it really comes in handy to have 3 hands. All right, if I want to be cautious, I'll say the fat part of the wing is not at the tip. It's the, and it comes to the end of the music line here. So what that means is, right about here, I'm going to say this comes here. Now, to be fair, it's annoying not to have a nice pretty flat face to do your profile drawing. However, I chose to use the height of this rock here as much as possible. And it may or may not work, but because it's quite narrow in the back, if you could see that. but I want to have that. And if it doesn't work, then I push the wing back a little bit more. And if worse comes to worse, I do the drawing and I really don't like this, well, I'm going to have to figure out a way to get another piece of marble, won't I? Okay, so going back here, oops, I don't want to put the painting side on that. I don't want it touching. Because this has wax in it, it's not going to harm the oil painting, but it also is going to put something on it I may not really want. Alright, so what I want to do is see where this point, for example, intersects with the head and the wing. And I want to see how distant that is from here. So it's going to be right about here. You can see how rather tedious this is, correct? Alright, so I know that the head, I'm going to put this right about that line. So right about here. So what that means is my wing is coming up something like this. Of course, it's going to be different because right now it just looks like boop, but, and then this will be coming here. Okay. Okay, so theoretically that's a point between the high point of the hair, because this high point here is just a little bit higher. It actually goes down in the back where these two would cross, but that's fine because I can always go down into the rock to put a little curve on her head, because I put a tilt on the face with it going back, so the skull is going to be going back a little bit too, except I gave her kind of 1960s hair because she has a lot of cool hair. Alright, so the next thing I want to measure is from this point of view, where do the two sisters' heads separate? So I'm going to, it's not actually where the head separates, but I'm looking at the top line here between the hair and, I have to remember to watch it because sometimes the camera shuts off, I don't know why. Okay, so that's about it for that. I'm going to come over here and see how I changed thumbs there so that I would get the measurement right. So basically this is one head and that's the other head, okay? So now I'm going to take a measure again from this straight on view here. I want to take the point where this head, see if you can show it for the camera. I want to get this point right here that you see the head slants down and then it turns up into this, because that's all. I'm looking at this as if the entire thing is a silhouette. From this point of view, it's black. And I want to draw a dark shape against the whole white, so I'm basically trying to get the outline, okay? Alright, so put this back from my point of view because it doesn't do me any good to use yours. No offense. Okay, and I have to be careful because I drew this at two different angles here. I want to make sure I get the board pretty good. Alright. Now this I don't need to add the fudge factor that we did for the height because there is no palette here, although this is probably a little bit wavering to me, but okay, so now I'm measuring from this end always. So now I come here and I know that this point is below the top of the wing and the top of her head. So I'm just going to help myself here and say maybe it's right about there. So do you see what I'm doing on my markings here? I'm making, this is a vertical measurement and this is an X, yeah, this is X and this is Y. So I'm doing it counter to the direction I'm going. So basically what this is saying, and the thing is, I can measure, what I want to do now is measure the height to where this line is. So I'm going to come back behind here and measure the height at this point. Push my thumb up a little bit to give me a measurement, an extra padding for this guy. Come up here, put my measurement here, and look, the measurement's right there. So that means this point where this intersection is, now this is going to go up here. I mean, even though it's really going behind her head, I can see that her hair is slanting this way because I've got the two heads angled together. And there's a little curve here, you see. And then her hair is going to go like this. And I've got her hair is kind of flat here, but then at this point it starts taking the dip because again her face is going this way. And her face is going this way. Okay? Alright, so this is, you can see how I'm kind of developing the basic idea. Now, I've got the point of the heels here, but I didn't do the measurement from this distance. So, if I take where the feet hit this part, measure that from the line, and I get right about there. And I'm going to turn this around because I don't want the ruler sticking into my clay. And I'm going from this edge, I went from the line here, not her foot. Going from this edge, and I see right about here, but it's at the height of the top foot. So what that tells me is that this is a bit of a point. So actually I'm going to come in on a point here. This needs to come up because it's not just going to stop at a point. It's got to be thick marble, right? And then this will go down. And I put a little bit of rock and roll here, so I don't want to just do a curve. I want to do an outie curve, and have it end here. Okay. Except that this goes lower than the feet, so this is going to come down here. Feet will come up, and then go down, and then end right about here. Okay. The other foot in behind it is going to come up here, and it's going to also be higher here. Okay, so. And it's weird because it looks to me like this is too far away. So I can come in again and say, I want to measure again where the bottom of this heel is, which is not actually the first point I measured, so I would hope that it would be inside of that. It's going to be in here. Do you see how imprecise this is? So it is a good idea always, once you think you got your act together, measure again. Okay, so remember, this is there. That's going to be the heel coming up. Of course, maybe this is the height. To check the height. And I'm looking at the point below the heel, where the two meet. Give it a little extra for the height of the palette. And theoretically, yes, so my heel is going to be here, theoretically. It's going to go up that high. And so, now, I can see from here, this kind of goes up and then it goes out. So I can do a little bit, but it's a slant. It's never a vertical line. It's a slant, it gets up beyond this heel, and then it starts doing the curve. Now, and again, I want to draw this curve a little bit fatter than I want it to be, because I can't take off the rock later. And then it's going to curve back down into this, okay? So I'm going to get rid of that. You know, when the rock face is like this, I can probably take an eraser and actually clean up the lines, and that may be something I do later when I get into it. Alright, so now, still filming, okay. I'm going to pick a point. Doesn't really matter where it is, although maybe what I should do is, you see, I could pick this point where this wing comes in here as a way to be consistent, because if I pick anywhere along this curve, it's all going to be kind of relative and it's very easy to make a mistake. Whereas if I pick this point, you say, okay, drop a line across this, and boom, that's my point. So, it's a little more than the thickness of the ruler, but it's right here, and then I add the palette. That's right there. Come over here. Wait, let's see, if I'm putting the edge of the ruler on the line I just marked for the edge of the wing. And I can still see, if I come to the front, there's a wee bit of niche showing. So I'm going to put a wee bit of marble here, do this, put that up there as much as I can with my fat finger in the way, and come over there. Now, so theoretically, this is where this wing is going to end. If I put a vertical up here with my painting, let me show you this. Do you see the distance between the knee and the wing? I have to get that angle properly, don't I? So it's about 1 centimeter at the top, right? So what that tells me is, oh wait, I goofed up because I made a horizontal line. That tells me the height, but I forgot to measure a little bit. So remember, I had a little bit of marble showing, and then I was on the other side of this. So this is my cross right here. Okay, so it's about this point that the wing comes up like this. The wing comes up here, goes back here, and then it turns around and it comes back here. Now, this is higher than what I've drawn here. So I want to make sure that I can get an idea of this curve. I'm going to pick, I don't know, I can make my mark right here if I want. Pick this. It's about one line into the ruler there, and it comes up to about here and there. So about one line into the ruler here, here and there. So do you see how I'm doing that? I'm trying to get this figured out so that, because to me, this line isn't really vertical. It is sloping this way always, but I don't want it to curve in too fast. I want it to be more like what it is. Now, I will tell you that once you get this drawn again, you can come back and look at this, and you can start doing things like put this up against here. Now what I want to do is read the negative shape. It's this triangle that I want to see. So when I put this up here, is that what I see? No, I see that this is coming in too much. But for right now, I'm going to leave that like that because it's just trying to be careful. So this will come up here, and maybe I'll say, all right, about the point where the side of her face is. And again, these are random points. I'm just doing anything that helps me. But you see it's the top of the ankle, because I have that defined. Now let me see where that comes in. So the top of the ankle might be a better thing because I've determined the top of the ankle that's closest to me is right about there. So if I come up here, I see right about here. I'm going to push that a little bit higher again. So what that's saying is this point comes here. And do you see how right about here I change from an innie curve this way to an outie curve this way? This is very long sloping, but you see the direction of this is a curve this way, and this is the S curve has changed right about at this point. So if I want, I could measure into that point and say, when does that change? So it changes right about here, is about where the S curve changes. So this will come down this way. It could be. And then it starts to change. And this line here, this is actually higher than that from some points of view. So, okay. The nice thing about being a direct carver is you've got to really enjoy drawing, because I'll tell you, since this knee doesn't actually come up to the edge of the marble here, I can cut this profile here, but I'm going to have to come back in and measure, and then I will cut the face of this off to put in the curve going this way, the other profile. So you end up having to do a lot of drawing, but it's the only way I know to get there. Okay, so I can do the same thing again with the head. I actually don't know if at this point I need to do more than this, because what this is telling me right now, if I just work one profile at a time, this will show me this is what I need to do. And I'll probably be very conservative, come in with the diamond disc and cut off this corner here. And then I may come in and cut some of this off. I know that the feet go underneath. Do you see if I put this here? Can you see that from the view I've given you there, that there's some space? The feet are underneath the wing. So I'll cut that off. So I can start doing this. I'll probably even be more conservative than what my lines are, because I would rather be cautious and not lose the stone. And so now you know of an extra use for your paintings. They're not just useless pretty things. I really hate that when people call paintings pretty things, but anyway. Alright, so another way I can start to cross myself is measure. Now I have to be consistent, because this is the point back here. And you see our hair comes in front of this. That's all by design. I want overlap, and I want things to not be seen from every direction. So, but if I want to measure the faces, for example, I'll say, and the faces I say include the hair, because right now I'm trying to make sure that the marble does everything I want. So, okay, let's say her hair comes down this way. And that means the other sister's hair comes down this way, okay? And that's about right, because again, her face is going this way. She's got a big sloping curve of curl here. And I can see that there is about that much difference there, because probably this is a little bit too thick as it comes into this point, okay? Because again, the wing here never touches that, but you can see it's not a vertical line. It actually does come in. So right now I've got pretty much a vertical line to here, and then it curves. So I think that that is probably a decent measure for the face. The interesting thing is, I don't like this height compared to that height. Do you see? Because if I put a straight line down here, this is much, much lower than that. So I want to remeasure that, because this is looking a little bit too thin, and I don't want to make a mistake with that. So I'm going to come back here on the back side and say, all right, what is this height here? And measure that, add my fudge factor. I'm going to come back over here and where the head matches. Okay, that looks like that's what I want. So why am I having such a discrepancy? Because if I measure this point here between this point where it goes in front, seems like it's about that much difference. Do you see? Something's not right in Denmark. All right, so let me come back up from the bottom here and measure back up to this point. And I'm going to turn this towards me, because I want to make sure I'm measuring apples and apples, and that's always a hard thing to do. So this, it turns out, is here. I give a little bit of fudge factor. That's not above the heel, it's a little bit to the right. So here's the heel point. It says I should be down here at this point. Wait. Okay. And that actually works with my drawing, because you see this space here, the vertical space at this point of the triangle here is, wow, it either looks the exact measurement, but this to me looks wider at the top, but it could be because this plane's facing me like this and this one is going down. But I think I've drawn this one too much here. I do want to keep the vertical feel to that, but let it come down. And see, now this is saying, no, this is the point where the S curve changes. So let me come down. Okay, here's a different way to do it. Is it still recording? Okay. All right. So my length of my rock is this. No, I better do this properly, because, you know, when I use a ruler, I just go for the end of the ruler, and that's not right if you're actually using numbers, because the ruler actually starts right here. So if I want to take I want to measure the line, not anything on the sculpture, because the sculpture is going to be wrong. So this looks like it's 9 1/4 inches. So that means 4 1/2 is half of 9. I think the video cut out here, but what I did was I took a measurement on this line here, decided what was half, made a mark here on what is half of the marble, not the sculpture. Well, although theoretically I pulled this to each end, so it should be the sculpture as well. But so I measure from here. To measure, I've got my X distance here. This is the horizontal marking. And then I made my Y. I measured this, added here, added a little fudge factor, and I come over here and measure. Okay, there's that. And then once I made this mark here, which I see I just did, it was a little higher, I come here using the ruler edge, not this part, because I was doing something mathematical, and when you're taking a half, okay, so I went to 4 1/2 to make 9, and then 3 little mark extra. So I found this cross here. Okay, so I have this probably at the height of here. Okay, so I drop this down in through this, coming through here, and then I make a long slow curve into this mark that I've made. Okay, so you can see a long slow curve and then a faster curve up. So you can see that the difference is where I made the mistake the first time, right? Do you see that's a lot higher? That's not bad, because I would have cut it right there and I would have had, you know, marble, and I would have gone down. But I saw that this distance and that distance were not working together, and I wanted to figure out what the problem was, because if you don't figure out the problem at this stage and you cut, then you're in some trouble. And the thing is, the face of the sister on the right is further in front. So if I cut too much here, I don't have room for her necklace with the crucifix because I only have a slight depth in here. And this is pretty much the edge of the marble right in this section. As we go here, it curves in, okay? So anyway, I'm going to keep going on with the measuring. You don't need to watch every single thing that I do to measure stuff. Probably not, right? If you do, leave it in a comment and I'll try to do a better job on the next one. So I'm going to keep refining the drawing here because my main thing is I want to make sure that I don't screw up. Okay, so this is a very rough stage, but if I can get this profile to look good, then I come in from this side and make it look good, and then I come in from this side and make it look good, and everything jives, I can feel comfortable to actually cut away the marble. But if nothing else that I do, I will recheck this high point here, I will recheck this point here, and I'm going to cut off the weight of this. Okay, just do a straight cut off because I know it's never going to grow back. There is nothing up here, and I can get that. Because everything that I do, I want to get closer to the finished surface that's this. Okay? Thank you for watching. Ciao, ciao. I'm going to try to do measuring better when I'm not on film. Thank you. Hi, good morning. This is Kelly, and you can see that I'm on the back side of the sculpture now. I have done the drawing here. Measuring, I was using it, instead of just this with my fingers measuring the distance, I started to use my little calipers here because I like them. They're a lot more precise. This was just a little plastic one. It has little metal feet on it, and I use it to, it's just a little part of a kid group with a bunch of measuring tools, and so I bought it at the 99-cent store or something like that. But I find it's really helpful to measure distances like this and to do things. Because remember yesterday when I was talking about having the ruler and how this was too long and I was having to flip it and stuff like that because it was extending beyond. So this helped me when I had smaller shapes to worry about and things like that. And I didn't have to worry so much about this. So anyway, this side is flatter and the rock is taller here. So it's not much nicer because I didn't have to draw over jiggy-jaggy rock. I can actually see the design well. However, you'll see here that on the side, I didn't go into much of a drawing here. I've got where the knee starts and ends here. This is the lower part of the curve. This is the higher part of the curve. This is the face of one sister. This is the face of another as far as the depth. And then you can see now that the wing actually, because it doesn't come right up to the back, the wing actually curves around a little bit to the front. And you'll see I don't have material there because the height is supposed to be up here. I can go back a little because the wing comes up. There's a little more material here. But it could be that I'm going to adjust the height of that wing as I see whether I have stone or not. But it's okay because it's still going to be, even if I cut it the most severe here, it's still going to be higher than her head, which I like. And maybe it'll be even more symmetrical. I tend to like asymmetrical things, but either way, I'm going to work with the stone as I have it. It could be that when I start cutting in the stone, I realize there's a lot of sugar in there. Sugar is not a good quality. It means the stone is really soft. My first time in Carrara, Italy in 2004, the geologist that was giving me a tour of the quarries and stuff was saying to me, "Oh, in our marble, you're going to love it. It's like sugar." He meant that it's white as sugar. And it was funny because I explained to him, don't say that to an American, because we learned that sugar means that it just crumbles away, melts like in your coffee. So I think he got a little lesson there. But anyhow, I digress. So what I've done here is on my measurements, I've made my little buffer that I was telling you about, trying to be fairly accurate, otherwise the drawing won't work to enlarge it. But at the same time knowing what's going to happen. So what's going to happen is I'm going to go from the high point here to the low point here, draw all the way around, make sure that my drawing in the back, front and back match each other as best that I can. And then I'm going to come in with the diamond blade, which is a disc about this big, has diamonds on the outside and center